Welcome back to Cosmic Brilliance, folks. Today, Dragon Fae hybrid Apollymi Mandylion is returning after 3 months' absence to go into more depth of what it is like to be a hybrid on Earth. Now, at first, for many of you, you think, well, how does that relate to me? But in fact, almost all humans at this point are hybrids, at least to a certain percentage. So, at the end of the show, also, we will be addressing subscribers' questions, about 6 of them that haven't been answered yet. So I wanted to let you know the plan. So welcome, Apollymi. Thanks for coming back.
Thank
Uh,
you for having me.
sure. Now, I feel first what needs to be addressed is the many emergencies Apollymi, being a very unusual being and having very unusual responsibilities, has been dealing with, that has caused her to reevaluate the format of her teachings. So for those of you who are new to Dragon Fae hybrid Apollymi, she, as others like her, are literally running a double life of a daily worldly life and all its responsibilities, taking care of animals, this, feeding herself, etc., etc., etc. And then in addition, on daily, nightly missions. So she gets very little sleep at all and needs to recoup. This level of stress has been very deleterious to her, and she has been forced to reevaluate what formats, if any, she can continue with teaching and still maintain her health and her nervous system, and also dealing with extremely low income and no time. So in case you were wondering if she had disappeared, not exactly, but that's what's been going on. Apollymi, did you want to add anything to that?
Possibly doing videos for the book that I have been doing, that way to help get it along while I'm still working on it to get some of the information out.
Okay. And doing videos by instructive videos, or is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, just doing some of the exercises and going through some of the lessons that are important for basic understanding of the science behind everything without getting too complicated. We can wait for the more complicated stuff when the when the book comes out.
Okay, so I wanted everyone to be updated, and we'll need to be a little bit in the flow of this. Many of you know this, but most humans on Earth have in their physical body anywhere from 22 to 24 ET contributing cedar races in their DNA that were generally inserted in the past. Everyone has unique DNA, unique signatures. Some have less, some have more, but that makes everyone, in a loose definition, a hybrid that is here on Earth, or almost everyone. So, Apollymi, I would like your definitions of hybrid, starseed, and other kin, if you would.
Okay. I think I've mentioned a few of these traits before in other shows that we did in the beginning. So I've only been part of the like UFO, awakened community for the last about 5 years now, and I'm finding that a lot of people have various definitions of what a hybrid is or what a star seed is. So the definitions that I know personally, just from the connections that I have and all of my jobs and everything up there, a hybrid, it pertains to your physical vessel that you are currently residing in. It has nothing to do with your soul, your astral body. So when we're talking hybrid DNA, we're talking about the physical body. And with all the seed creator races and stuff like that, like it's going to vary because the genetic pool has, you know, merged with a lot of things and whatnot. But 50% or higher of the DNA that is concentrated, that is ET DNA and has nothing to do with, you know, humanoid or human looking, like the Aryans and stuff like that. They still qualify as like ETs, but those DNAs that are 50% and higher, that are not as mixed down here for the fourth era of man or fifth era of man, is what qualifies as a hybrid. The star seeds, everyone's a star seed. It literally just means that your soul comes from someplace else before reincarnating down here. And it doesn't matter, you could get reincarnated down here like 500 times, but your soul's creation was not from this planet. And it occasionally happens. It occasionally happens that a consciousness can be created on this planet and then be brought, into birthing here. But the majority of everyone on this planet is from elsewhere, either from a different universe, different plane of existence, that sort of thing. So you're going to have different DNA for your astral body or your soul, and you're going to have different traits.
Okay, well, that's really clear. And when you say other kin, what does that refer to?
So there is a terminology that is quite old. It has to do more with terminology of old era, and anything that is not human is considered otherkin. So in ancient times, with like the Gorgons, the dragon folk, any other like vampiric ET beings, they're kind of considered otherkin. You have otherkin dimensional beings, and then like extraterrestrials and terrestrials. So there are ETs that are of species, but they have thrived here and have been here long enough to be considered, just terrestrials. Those still kind of qualify as otherkin. They're intelligent, they have their own societies, they have their own rules and laws. So they're a species, basically. Otherkin are just other species that don't qualify into full-on ETs from outer space or dimensional beings. But they're not fifth era man or part of the, experiment basically for genetics down here.
So how does being born into specific bloodlines affect your DNA and abilities, or does it?
So there are certain bloodlines that have traits of either ET or dimensional beings. I consider celestials being a dimensional being. I consider lower plane entities being dimensional beings because they do come from different dimensions and or planes or even other universes. But there are some genetic families down here that have a concentrated value of that in their DNA. And of course, like as time goes on, it gets washed out, just from breeding with other people, and sometimes they have, packs or bonds that they keep that line strong. And those DNAs have a more elevated chance of having abilities for certain things.
All right, so DNA can come from off-world, and
Mhm.
also for some of you listeners, the galactic races and Earth races that live inner Earth, inside our world. And so what are the typical signs that one has a higher percentage of galactic hybridization? Uh, is it having to do with senses and smell or sight or hearing? So if you could share some of your own personal experiences around that, that would be great.
Yeah, so it depends on your percentage and what genetic traits that you have acquired through these DNA um, passing down of lineage. Some people might be like 50%, but only get like ability traits versus physical traits. And some people might get, physical traits versus ability traits. So just because someone's physical body looks different doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have the ability traits like, super telepathy or psychokinesis or anything like that. Again, it depends on the genetic quirks that you inherit. And some people get both. So having experiences of sensatory or physical traits really just kind of varies. For me, I not only have ability traits, but I also have physical traits as well. And, hearing, sight, smell, um, detection of certain abilities, having certain traits of like high empathy, telepathy, that sort of thing is it's difficult. And, I have met other hybrids on this planet before, and it's very interesting because even though some of them can come from same lineages, it's and they could even be the same percentages, like they might not have the same abilities because it just again depends on your traits, well, at least that they have at that point in time that become very innate to their body to use or that they haven't shut off.
So it usually has to do with sense, as I understand, because I know when I was visiting you, folks, if she doesn't mind me saying this, hopefully you don't. We're sitting on the porch and she's like, "Ooh, ice cream." And I'm like, "What? What, you want ice cream?" And she goes, "No, the ice cream truck." And you could hear, I mean, I could not hear it, and I have good hearing. And so about 5 minutes later, the ice cream truck comes around the far block, right? So that would be example when she just says, "Oh, hearing." Usually it's almost like wolf hearing or advanced hearing or over miles. So what are other examples you can give in your life? So do you walk down a street and know what everyone's thinking?
So I have at a young age I turned my telepathy off. I get spurts of it every now and then unless I'm on base and I'm fully activated because I don't have a choice in the matter. But during my life here, being in civilization, it comes in spurts. I have to reach the right brain frequencies to do that, and I can either project my thoughts to other people or just receiving. Everyone thinks that it's all one package, but that's not actually how it works. Um, with telepathy, most people think that you get receiving and sending like all in one package. And when I was a kid, this was true, but there are certain points where I can only receive or I can only project. It really just depends on my brain waves. So, and some species and some people have only one or the other. It's a muscle. You have to train in it to really hone in everything. Because your receiver and your sender are like two different wavelengths. So for that, occasionally I'll pick up things. I'm really empathic most of the time, even through the internet. Like I even playing video games, I have that heightened sense of, you know, reading the environment or reading the person or AI. Most people's intuition, is like, oh, well, something's bad's going to happen today, or I feel like something good's going to happen today. Heightened intuition, you can read through AI, which, because like you're still interacting with the world, even though the game itself isn't producing energy fields for your aura to, interact with and receive that information through conscious awareness, through galactic conscious awareness, as most people would understand it. Uh, when you get that heightened insight, you can still feel it, even if it's 2D or two-dimensional. So,
And now with pheromones or smelling, one of my girlfriends just had a hearing test and she goes, "Oh my God, they told me I had like wolf hearing, that I
mm,
could hear a lot." Do you know what I mean? And she didn't even
yeah,
know that. But I could always tell when we went into a loud restaurant or something, she'd be like kind of like this. Yeah.
yeah, it can be intense. And to let people know, just because you have heightened hearing doesn't necessarily mean you hear everything that's going around with you. Like 5 people could be having a conversation over on the other side of the restaurant. It doesn't necessarily mean you can hear what they're saying. It's just you're receiving all that information without processing it. So selective hearing, when you master that, though, you can tune everyone out and start focusing on certain frequencies that you want to hear. And that takes training and time.
That sounds fun. I think a lot of husbands practice that.
I think it's kind of innate. I wouldn't even just say husbands. There's some wives out there
What?
too.
Can't hear you.
Ah,
Okay. Anyway, so okay, so that's great. And again, this show is not just about Apollymi's abilities. This show is for everyone to recognize that you are human hybrids, whether it's 2%, 3%, or 50%, which are the pure forms. So now my next question to you, Apollymi, is, does being a hybrid affect one's potential to successfully raise their vibrations to ascend?
no. Just because you're a hybrid doesn't mean that you get extra kudo points, as most people would call it, to ascend. I had my abilities ever since I was a kid, and I was still at 3.5 vibration of ascension level. I
Oh,
I literally had to work very hard on getting those essential levels up. And here was my huge downfall of that. You know, yes, I still have a little bit of ego. It's never going to go away because it's part of creation. It's part of who we are. You just need to keep it in check. Um, and I had a lot of growing to do when I was a teenager and a kid, just like everybody else. You know, I had abilities more than most humans and more than most hybrids that I knew, or other kin that I knew that I, occasionally ran into and became friends with. But even then, like, so I was like, oh, I have all these abilities. I don't need to, really work on anything. I'm already ascending. But what I found out was ascension is not only, having abilities, it's not about having abilities. It's about the connection between your physical vessel and mastering it to be able to ascend in the dimensions of the plane of existence it is on. Okay. Now this is kind of confusing for some people, but the plane of existence would be like this universe. It doesn't matter if you're 12D dimension, you're still going to exist in this plane of existence. And I will be going through all of this in the videos and stuff that we're going to be doing because this is so important. It's like the elements, okay? You can't see air, but it is a lower dimension of physics than a rock. Does that make sense?
kind of. I would think it's funny. I would think it was a higher vibration because it's see-through or something, but it's a lower dimension of physics.
On a physics level, it is gas and air movement, like the electromagnetic fields, is on a lower dimension, on a plane of physics or on a plane of existence than a rock. A rock is a higher one. It has more physical structure to it. The physics of it is more condensed and complicated.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
Okay.
Okay.
So ascension is the same thing. The lower your dimension is, the less physics that you have. All right. 3.5 is what most people are at on this planet. Most of us.
Right now.
Right now. So the dimensions of your physical body are not complicated or vibrational enough to ascend into the other dimensions of physics energetically and physically for your physical vessel. And that's where ascension comes in. You are raising those physics and evolving into new physics in order to ascend. the more you vibrate and the more complicated the physics, the more dimensions you obtain on an energetic and physical level. And I'll go through all of the like structure levels before it returns to source in the videos as well. But during the physical evolution of this, there's a lot of things that happen, which I will explain later on in this interview as well.
Okay, so that's interesting to know that. I think at this point in our people need reminded that we are finishing up the fifth era of man. Of man, that doesn't have to do with sex or female males. It's just called the fifth era of man, uh, which was upgrading energetically, which you'll explain, called the miracle DNA.
Mhm.
And we're just starting the sixth era. So talk about those two in in the transition.
So the fifth era of man was the new seeds that basically got put down here for the experiment. They were, as you call them, the miracle DNA, because as we explained before in other videos, many souls could not be reincarnated into certain bodies without previously having their souls be part of that DNA lineage. Even if it's a slight off branch lineage, because the vibrations of the souls would not merge with the vibrations of the physical vessel, and the vibrations would vibrate like this, and it would just destroy the body, over time, or there would be birthing complications. The soul could just not fit into it comfortably to survive. And with this miracle DNA, which is the 22 lineages that, speak of, and that I have mentioned previously as well, it was a genetic anomaly that just worked. And they decided to put it down here during the fifth era, and, after the wipe and reset, and let it do its thing. But there's so many souls down here now that have never really been able to be on one planet in reincarnation, seeing how they work together, which is why we have a lot of strife, because people are so unknown about their identities, But the physical DNA has the ability to evolve faster to their souls, their astral body's DNA. The bridge link is going to be much easier to create from the physical vessel to the astral body.
With why is it easier to create? Because we're in the fifth era.
Right, because we're transitioning to the sixth era. And the vibrations of the planet, because the planet's consciousness is rising, is what is causing the sixth era of man to evolve from the fifth era without a reset or anything like that. So the vibration of the planet, the consciousness of the planet, it has risen from 3.5 to like 4.5 at this point, and it's still continuing. It keeps getting upgrades and is just thriving, which will help with environment on evolving the new sixth era of man that is being born and coming in.
And the sixth era just started, just beginning waves or
Yeah,
something.
the sixth era basically started about 5 to 6 years ago, depending. The planet's consciousness really hasn't started jumping until about 3, though.
And she's jumped from what to what, her consciousness?
She basically jumped from about 4 to 4.5
Okay.
just within the last 3 years.
Just so exciting. We've had upgrades in these last years we've shared
Yeah.
on the show. Yeah, so it's wonderful to get that validation. Now, so that's very exciting. And along with that, how many humans on Earth right now, what percentage do you think are at 3.5 or percentage higher or that? Can you kind of guesstimate?
More than 3.5. There's only about there's less than 10% for above 3.5 right now.
Okay, and the majority are at 3.5.
And the majority are still at 3.5, correct?
Okay. So I know you have ascended as much as seventh tier and then devolved back and back and forth in different things. So, as well as the fifth and sixth era of man, there's something different that we've discussed about tiers in Ascension, which was one of everyone's favorite shows. But I'm just narrowing it to discuss Ascension to the sixth or seventh tier. What makes ascending to the sixth or seventh tier unique? Because you were, I think in the pre-talk, you were telling me the potential to evolve your body to the soul's DNA or something like that.
Correct.
Can you describe that?
So evolving your body to your soul's DNA actually happens after you break through the seventh tier to the next stage. You complete that bridge that happens during that stage, and it evolves up to the next sphere, if you would like to think about it that way. So
And the seventh,
if you think about this, the sphere, like this sphere over here being 1 through 7th tier, and then this sphere over here being, you know, the next stage, and they have a very fine line where they just barely touch. You want to create that bridge between those two to move to the next dimension. Well, plane of existence, basically, for that.
because your frequencies in physics have to line with the next one to exist on it. Otherwise,
Correct.
you can't
Yeah.
by default mechanism. I mean, by automatic. Wow, fascinating. And is the seventh tier, I'm trying to remember, was that neutrality what you needed to achieve to be able to?
So 7th tier is basically the first stage of enlightenment. Once you get past that, like people start going into more of the enlightened stages, which a lot of the monks teach. You're still going to exist on this planet if you choose to do so. You can still keep your vibrations at a low enough level, but people have to understand that, like when they, you know, there's rumors going around that there's like, oh, well, if you get past the 7th stage, you go into the next dimension up, and you don't exist anymore. But humans have such a very small window of sight that they're programmed to see in their DNA for light. When you bend that light around you, you disappear and you become invisible to most things. So while you can at 7th tier start to understand on how to bend light around you, like you should be able to at that point, just naturally, you know, I'm not saying anyone's going to be perfect at it when it first happens, because again, it's something that you have to learn and something you have to continue like a muscle, because it's an ability. But uh you can have the ability, you know, to raise to the next plane of existence and start doing the traveling and stuff like that that some people have mentioned. But again, that's on a different, if you think about like 3 point, you know, like this universe right here and now, you know, existing, and then you have a dimensional being that is like 12th dimension. Okay. Not tier of ascension, but just 12th dimension. And that they have to actually lower their vibration to be physical to human eyes in order to interact down here.
Right.
You know, even though they exist still within the same sphere of reality. So again, it's the, you know, the solar wind or wind principle interacting with a rock. You know,
Uh-huh. Yes, I get it. Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so folks, at this juncture, I imagine you're going, okay, so I'm learning all this stuff, and I've just been told, or many of you already know it, that I have this DNA. How do I find this? Because I'm sure you figured out that the haplogroups, like in 23andMe, do not even get close to any of that kind of stuff. So I want to share with you someone who I know personally has a very good track record at incorporating that kind of reading, who's Ileana, the Star Traveler. She's been a guest on my show, and Apollymi knows her as well.
mm,
And uh, what I'd like to, I'm going to take 2 minutes out to tell you what she offers. And I don't suggest a lot. I would highly suggest doing that for those of you that want a broader picture. And what I describe in her description will tell you why. So in the online Zoom galactic and human DNA reading, you will find out what your galactic star beings' DNA percentages are for extraterrestrial lineages. The number of lifetimes you have had is those being off-world beings, and what your human DNA percentage is. Human DNA is the number of how many lifetimes you have lived on Earth as an overall percentage, and not merely like the haplogroups in the 23andMe. The galactic DNA percentages describe the different species names, as well as the percentages of the ET types that you have been in your family soul lineages. So the human DNA percentage also shows how much Earth DNA you have in your lineage. The other percentage that is looked at is how much starseed energy you are currently embodying in this lifetime on Earth, and what your soul energy level is like right now. So the point is, even though this all sounds so esoteric and you're like, how does that relate to me? It all relates to many things that you are living now into having a broader picture and understanding abilities, etc. So galactic DNA origins come from how many extraterrestrial lifetimes someone has had, and the human DNA comes from many lifetimes someone has been incarnated on the planet Earth. All DNA percentages are stored in the person's soul field, and also their physical DNA and genomics sequencing. So a living being can have, believe it or not, more than 100% of genetic types for parts of galactic DNA and human DNA percentages. The number of percentages for different DNA types may vary depending on how many galactic past lives someone may have had outside of Earth and how many lifetimes someone has been born on Earth. Now, in the longer sessions, like her one and 1.5 hour versus 30 minutes or 45 minutes, I would suggest that because then you have time to explore some of the relevant ET past lives you have had, how they are connected to your galactic DNA lineages, and how these lineages impact your current lifetime, which is really important. In addition, specific traits and characteristics of the galactic ET abilities they had that connect to strengths in your current lifetime and insights in how that can help you in your present life can be explored. So I wanted to share that with you because I've been blessed to at least have 50 psychic readings from very, very top people in my life. And I would say so far she is the most accurate and one of the very few that can do this level. So the link is provided here below for her. She did not ask me to do this. I'm volunteering because I want you to have solutions available to you so that you can expand further. I remember you said in our pre-talk that I mean, it just blew me away. I don't know why, that the soul is more limited on abilities than what the physical body can do. It just was startling to me.
So the soul being limited on what the physical body can do is pertaining to what it transfers over to your physical body. Does that make sense? Like the soul has more physics and more dimensions,
Oh,
but in order for it to interact with this dimension, because they reside on two different ones, or plane of existence, I should say, even though they cross to each other, um, it's harder for it to, because it has to dumb down its, vibration levels, and it has very limited physics to be down here, and it has to work on concentrating those physics versus being able to be more fluid and having more vibrations to it. So in order to do that, it needs to work through your physical vessel in order to do that, uh, or it can act on its own, and your astral body has to be able to again dumb down those physics and concentrate them, which takes time and training, because just because it's all the way up here doesn't mean it knows what it's doing all the time. Um, And it's kind of that topsy-turvy physics aspect of creation versus, coming out of the creation bubble and being more physics. And we'll get into that later in the videos. So it's very interesting, and some people have a hard time wrapping their head around that concept, but they have to have the ability to, again, concentrate that, know what they're doing, and how to manipulate those physics to act on its own accord.
And that usually takes intent, right?
Mhm.
Conscientious daily attention, working on it, right? And then also, like you said, the genetics each person has unique in their physical body, right?
Correct. And not everyone's going to have those abilities for their astral body acting out on their own. Your astral body has its own identity. It has its own perspective of things. Remember that, you having a physical body down here, it's fractaling or sharding itself to have that experience in a different plane of existence. So, it's very limited to sometimes, but that's the connection that you're trying to build. To decrease those limitations by further connecting your physical vessel to interact with your astral body and to start evolving your physical vessel to the same dimensions that the astral body can provide.
And
Does that make
so
sense?
for you, is the term astral body and soul interchangeable?
So to your physical vessel, the astral body would be your soul. Because when it perishes or dies or expires, all those memories, all of that energy is going back to your astral body.
Okay.
And then it's your
That's
astral body that has the afterlife experience.
perfect. Oh, that is so clarifying. And I'm sure it's even more challenging on Earth for all of us having much shorter lives than all the living beings on so many other planets and how we used to when we first came here. Would you agree with that? Because then we just forget who we are, start over again, all this kind of thing.
Correct. So again, not all seed planets will make you forget where you came from. It's only select few. This one's like one of the worst ones I've seen. So having such a short lifespan, truly, nowadays, even though, they're like, oh, humans are, having longer lifespans, but like back 4,000, 6,000 years ago, or, and 12, their lifespans were hundreds to thousands of years. And it
Yeah.
gave that time for their bodies to evolve and be able to connect with their astral bodies. So not being able to have that time frame has really hindered a lot of evolution for people.
And was that, or that wasn't the original part of the game. The original part of the game was for maximum integration and where multiple species could come in and explore that. So it wasn't really to have so many challenges as that, or a low life or anything, because you go, what kind of creator would create that, right?
After the Veil and Matrix got put up before Yashua's birth, that ended one of the eras of man. And so the creator councils of this planet decided to wipe everyone's memories upon reincarnation, start dropping the vibration of the planet. They're bringing a very highly evolved experiment in that can bring all sorts of souls in. So they wanted it to be more controllable without having the whole Nephilim issue again, is the whole thing. And unfortunately, I feel like dumbing down the planet to 3.0 was just the worst thing ever, because you separate yourself further from source when you do that. And it can create higher dimensional beings to go insane and mad, and they don't know who they are. They become aggressive, So and they get lost. They truly get lost being separated from source like that. And I've had my bouts with this as well. And so it was just a bad experiment to start out with such a
Yeah.
amazing DNA structure. Um,
It sounds
no,
like the perpetual struggle between parents and their kids.
right.
The
Right?
parents are always trying to control like less collateral damage. That will pretend they have free will, but we're going to secretly track them,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
then the kids are like, "Woohoo, let's go do this," right? And I'm sure the shorter lifespan and all those things have made it much more challenging. Yeah.
Well, back then, like the lifespans were pretty decent. You were still living for about 1,000 to 1,500 years. And, as time went on with this planet, there was just a lot of ET politics and shenanigans, and things just got dumped on and dumped on. Oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then things behind closed doors that never should have happened and illegal. It just was unfortunate the way everything played out, I should say, for this planet. It had such potential, and it got very neglected.
Yeah. But we're shifting that. We're going, and we've had a lot of positive things in the last couple of years. So
Right.
thank you for clarifying that. Now, in one of our several pre-talks, you brought up something which another thing was fascinating, which was the number one focus should not be on who you are,
Mm.
but what you are. So what do people need to know about that first?
So going through my own ascension and watching my students that I had before go through their ascension, we keep going back to one thing. It doesn't matter what your soul was. It doesn't matter what your astral body is or who they were or all the experiences that they've had. What matters is this physical vessel right here and now. You know, what are you? What is this physical vessel? What DNAs do you have? What abilities do you have? What can you do? You need to focus on that. You need to make it about your physical body. If you have to isolate yourself, go ahead and do that, but figure out what you are, because the moment you figure out what you are, not so much like your potential that you have, but just the base foundation of what you are. And what I mean by that is, what can your body do? Do you really know yourself, your physical body? Like all the details of your body, the health of your body, the consciousness of the identity of your physical body, because the physical body has its own identity. It has its own consciousness of being on this plane of existence versus your astral, versus your soul. And a lot of people forget this. They're like, oh, yeah, mind, body, and soul. But they really do forget about the body. They're always looking ahead and looking to the prize of that astral experience, connecting with your higher consciousness and your soul. But in order to actually evolve fully and ascend, your physical identity has to come to terms that it's no longer going to exist the way that it does. And this can hold a lot of people back, because the physical identity can become scared of just merging with an identity that already exists. It's a survival factor, and it's an unknown that scares a lot of people from finishing. Like, I was terrified. I was like, oh God, I'm not going to exist anymore. Everything that I am and have been isn't going to matter. It creates a huge identity crisis, and it can make people back off. But once you actually understand that your physical vessel, even though it will be evolving into something more, you're still you. You just become part of something greater.
That's beautifully said. And part of that is the incredible programming. And this is such an understatement that people think that they're their bodies, and so many relationships are based on that. So much everything, all the media perpetuates insecurity around that, everything. So rather than get to know your body, love your body, and connect to it,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah, learn your body's own personality and quirks. The more you evolve into ascension, the more you become confident in being yourself. And you start losing the interest of the fads and everything. I'm not saying you can't, find the new fad of clothing attractive and still go with that, but you're wearing it with confidence. You're not wearing someone else's look. You're wearing you. And you're not trying to mimic to be someone else. You're doing your own thing.
As artistic expression of that.
Yeah. Yeah, as
Not
artistic
to fit
expression.
in, not for social peer pressure, not to cover insecurity, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, which
Yeah.
is, endless. So I'm just gonna summarize the little bit that you just did because I just loved how you said this to me, and summarize it for the audience. So you said you need to understand about your physical body DNA and your etheric/soul DNA first. That's the what. It's the physical DNA that needs to ascend.
Mhm.
It is your physical body that needs to ascend. It needs to pass that ascension. It doesn't matter how great or powerful your soul is. What matters in this meat suit is the ratio and what you are doing with your physical body right now.
Correct.
Those were
Absolutely
your
correct. A lot of these people are like, oh, I was this goddess or I was this king or queen, in my past lives. Even though your soul still retains those memories and certain DNA factors of those, that's not what you are right now. What you are is what is you are residing in at the current time and moment. And that's the time that needs to be focused because it is that vessel that gets to be the creator and change your environment and change yourself into what you want to be.
Yeah. It's like it's not necessarily that ascension isn't necessarily about jumping out of the vessel. It's transforming within the vessel.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
So you have a lot of spacey people who have all these experiences, but the body's kind of left behind going, well, wait a minute.
It really is. It kind of gets left in the dust while everyone's like, "Oh, I'm going to be this awesome superhero and I'm going to get all these abilities and I'm going to go off world." And it just gets left into the dust with all the daydreaming. But, again, that's the awareness, the conscious awareness of your physical vessel, the conscious, being aware of the abilities that it has now, because that is the abilities that is the body that you want the abilities to evolve in. Unlock those abilities that are in your DNA that you have from your family traits. Everyone's so ashamed nowadays about their lineage and being themselves and all this stuff, but it should be the opposite. You need to know where you came from, everything that your ancestors have done and stuff. That's not the point. The point is, what did their DNA traits provide you to be able to evolve into a better you, into a better ascension, and into a environment and into a vessel that you want to create, that you've already been given the building blocks for.
Because I have learned and have been told that the DNA holds the memory
Mhm.
of
It
your
does.
ancestry and everything else.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
if your family was a bunch of, piano players, if you got that trait of that DNA and unlocking that and being able to get that osmosis from it, you can do amazing things. And people dismiss this so much, and we've talked about it in other videos,
I know.
but unlocking those memories and being able to aspire to the legacy that your ancestors have left behind for you is absolutely phenomenal. There's stuff on this planet that ETs can't do out there. And people need to understand that. They're like, oh, ETs are the best, blah, blah, blah. You have no idea how much stuff they come here for.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't mean DNA wise, I mean like the inventions and contraptions that have been forged on this planet, the architecture,
Oh,
yeah, everything.
back engineering. They do think
Yeah.
we're slightly emotional crazy, even though they don't like to judge.
There's still
Our
some
range of
emotional,
emotions is so huge compared to most other species.
but a lot of our cultures on this planet don't allow us and teach us to rein in those emotions and harness them correctly to aspire us to be, to have it be motivation and power in order to get things done. So
Mhm. I like the depth of accessing the range without the drama.
yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like down here, they say, okay, you guys are experiencing 50 colors or 80 colors. Up there, you experience 370. So to say, to listen to a poem and hear the beauty of the poem and have tears come, to me is a wonderful experience to have as a range rather than to go, oh, that's nice. Or any kind of creative expression. But we have to get rid of the stories and the drama. So,
Yeah, like
so
if I am interpreting this correctly, it's like it's a communication thing too, like how people communicate with themselves, and we're gonna get into this about like certain abilities and whatnot, and how it can be hard to ascend on this planet and be a hybrid when you have these senses. But for most humans, and or should I say for most DTs coming to this planet, humans interact three ways. Okay. Either they're the type of person who does the texting with 1,000 emojis, and you're like trying to sit there and file through all the emotions to get the true understanding of the text. Um, or it's a very bland, straightforward, no emotion, emotions are completely cut off. You can't read anything from it. Text of like, oh yeah, I'm doing good, but there's no emotion behind it. Like it's just plain, or like you're trying to convey something to an ET, and it's just very vague. They don't have any emotion. They don't have any like osmosis, like pictures or anything through that high telepathy to take on it. So it's to their interpretation only, you
right.
know? And then you got
Yeah,
the
and
people who
learning,
are
and
balanced.
especially when they have mastered, as creator beings have, neutrality. A lot of them have mastered neutrality. And I'm like, can we just have a little excitement? Someone had cracked me up once. Sorry, folks, just have to say this. It cracked me up once because I think like smiling's great, having fun.
Yeah.
And they said, well, there is one species that when you smile, they look at it as if you're baring your fangs and going to attack them. So it's just amazing. So I can see how just holding the center balance is much more appropriate when dealing with
I,
this.
I will tell you this. If you can get a Sierrian to smile during one of the galactic meetings while you're talking with them, you're doing pretty good, because they're very stoic. They're very straight faced,
Yeah.
and
And a
they
smile's
don't look
probably
angry. They
and a
don't look.
smile's probably a slight smirk, like,
No, you can get them to actually smile, but it takes a lot. Like they don't look angry, but they just have that resting, like
right,
zenful face,
right.
like, and it keeps them mysterious, because like you have to really know what's going behind that brain of theirs in order to read them well.
They'd make good poker players.
Yeah, they do.
We finished talking about the bridge connection between physical body and astral body. Was there anything else you wanted to say about that? How that
Between the physical body and the astral body, like it takes a lot of work. In order to start that process, you really have to start just knowing yourself. And in order to do that, you have to separate yourself from everyone and everything. Isolate yourself and really just figure out what you are. What do you like? What does your body like? What do you find inspiring? What do you find of beauty? What do you find, your taste in food? And I know that seems trivial, but it gives a good understanding of your biology, because when you start doing that, you start connecting to your physical body's heart, and your heart is connected to your soul. So even though your soul might be a completely different person for your astral body, and they might like different things and whatnot, because they're not going to be the same as you. The creation's different, but so you have to understand what is you. What is you, you know? Why do you like the colors you like? It's a lot of internal deep thinking and observation, but that's what you're going to need in order to get to the mindset, and understanding that you're going to need to ascend.
curiosity and actually asking self-referential questions
Yep. Because you're
is
going to be doing that a lot
yeah.
throughout the whole process.
Okay. Now, let's see. We're just cruising along here. So, we're getting into now, you've used the term shards before. They use that off world. I tend to use fractals or aspects of one's oversoul. And but then when you described to me why, I thought, oh, that's beautiful because you think of souls like crystals. And when you remove a piece of a whole crystal, that's a shard of like glass or a shard of crystal. So that's why I use that. So in the past shows, when we were talking about the percentage of energies that an oversoul contributes to its aspect, like merrily or like Apollymi or shard, and the importance of which shard or aspect is considered the prime shard or aspect, which generally means you have the most energy and communion with the oversoul. Can you speak about the abilities and potential of the different prime consciousness, please?
Okay. So this is going to be an interesting breakdown. We talked about oversoul, and the oversoul is your first creation into existence anywhere, any plane, any dimension, any universe, that sort of thing. And it depends on where it's created, because it, like in this universe, we have different dimensions in this universe that create this universe, and different planes of existence in this universe. So a consciousness can be created within any one of those planes. And that's where its source is. Okay, so not everyone's source is the same for their oversoul. Now, when we're talking about the grand scheme of things, where it's just like the purest energy form ever, when this multiverse is ready to end, all of that knowledge is going to go back to the first source of consciousness that made this multiverse. All right, but not everyone's oversoul resides exactly there. And I think that was confusing to some people that we got into the comments where I did the oversoul and the creation and stuff like that. All energy comes from the main source of the multiverse. Okay. And then when you have universes, that universe's energy comes from the main source of that universe. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But your oversoul, even though it resides on the same plane of existence as the main source, so it only has certain physics that it can interact with. The energy signatures, because it resides on a different plane of existence, is going to still be different. So my oversoul and your oversoul's energy signatures are going to be different. We're going to have possibly different emotions that created us, you know, different aspirations that created us, and energy signatures that created us. So this also pertains to how powerful an oversoul is when it comes to abilities, because my abilities of my oversoul and your abilities of your oversoul are going to be different. And when we fracture or shard or fractal, depending on how many times and what planes we fractal into, is going to create those abilities for them as well. So say you only fractal twice.
Going to dilute it or
Yeah,
keep it more powerful.
it's
It's
going
like
to dilute
having
it.
8,000 kids or just one.
Anyone who has 8,000 kids is going to be pretty worn out. And the same is for fractaling or sharding, because like that is a lot of energy being taken from its original source. So you might have more information, more experiences. Your oversoul, when it gets all of those back, is going to be more educated and figuring out again everything on how to coexist with trauma, coexist with events and problem solving, so that it makes a better conscious universe, because we all share consciousness. So when all of that happens, like all of that energy, all of that time, all of the memories will return to that oversoul, and then that oversoul will become its full potential once again, if not more, because every single fractal and shard has the potential to evolve and get more dimensions. And so when it returns back to the main oversoul where source is, it has the ability and knowledge to interact with more dimensions, more planes of existence from other spheres than as if it was just to stay in one spot and not have that experience at all in knowledge. So that is like the main goal of Ascension. It's like throughout, multiverses to universes to small creation to big creation. So, but as for powers, like I have a lot. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. But the shard, the fractal that I am now has a lot of abilities. So obviously mine had more to contribute than some of the other people that I know, and I've met ones that have more fractals or shards than me, and they're still stronger than me, and they can still whoop my butt. So it really just depends. Now, do I have the same abilities as the people who are more powerful than me, or the people who are less, have less abilities than I do? No. Like, say I'm a fractal from 4 shards down of my oversoul. Now I will retain certain information for my astral body from that fractal, but when I get into a physical vessel, it's going to really depend on how much my physical vessel's DNA can allow certain abilities from my astral body to come through without destroying that body. Again, the vibration difference. And so you need to create that bridge of connection and know thyself of the physical vessel and the astral body in order to create that bridge to carry those energies through safely and evolve safely.
And the communication link,
Yeah,
right?
that's the communication link. Not only energetically, but on a memory level. You're basically going from one sphere to another of 2 different planes of existence, and your silver cord is your tether, or whatever kind of cord you have, because there are many, depending on who and what you are.
Wow. Okay, so what arises for me is so often many beings have said souls are made from stardust, literally. So, what do you know about souls and briefly how way back they're originally made? Like what are the elements of it, just briefly?
So, I mean, it is a very old terminology, and when I mean old, I mean like there are many species who are ancient that say that they're from, that they're from stardust. Creation is from stardust, and they're not wrong. Uh, but I take it as 2 different standpoints. Everyone knows that, a lot of stars create materials. And so those materials are help form planets and asteroids, and those physics are actually true, to my understanding, even with the physics that I know. And even dark stars, which we'll get into that way later. But uh as for souls, like a soul is basically I wouldn't say random occurrence, but it is a gravitational binding that is of emotion and identity, so, and thought. So those are
Consciousness.
that's what makes consciousness, yes. Because a consciousness is of 2 different aspects, the logic and emotion. And that stands true for every consciousness, even though some lack more than, on one aspect than the other. They both have, it's all there. It's just, some have more higher of emotion, some have higher of logic, some have both. That's about all I can go into that. On a scientific level, consciousness will always have a EMF field, electromagnetic field of some
Right.
sort. Yes. Whether it can be detected through this plane of existence or other implements, it is always producing. Just like the human brain. The human brain always produces, and your heart always produces EMF fields,
which is part of the soul signature.
which is part of the physical body's signature, the auric signature, yes, for the physical body.
Okay. That's so fascinating. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because that's not easy to find anywhere. I find that humans have been given a source default of empathy. You had brought up
Mm.
empathy, because almost everyone I see as clients are empathic. And when I say to them, I think you're empathic, it's about 80% of them say, what does that mean? So to me, it means where you can sense what someone else is feeling. And so um, share with me the answer, which I thought was so beautiful, that you gave me around why empathy is a default mechanism, was put in by.
So, as I just got done explaining on how consciousness is created, the ability of empathy is to feel someone else's emotions or what they're thinking. It's not telepathy, okay? Telepathy is different. Empathy is the ability to feel another energy field, because all emotions produce a frequency, an electromagnetic frequency or a Hertz frequency. And your field, of your heart and brain can perceive that. And it is a gift that is of source creation itself. Again, this is how consciousness exists and how it interacts with its plane of existence. And that never leaves us. Now, there are some species who don't have that ability to produce emotions, and some have the ability not to feel emotions, but it is kind of rare. Most of those are from the genetic experiments that, the ETs have created just so that they can do their jobs without feeling impacted.
Right.
And a lot of people just shut it off when after they get to a certain age from a child, because it's not within their culture. Oh, you feel too much, you need to be tougher, stop being a wimp, or oh, you're just being silly. So unfortunately that has devolved a lot of people's abilities to have empathy or empathic abilities to sense other people's emotions from their field, or through trauma we learn to close off the ability to project our emotions, and it's our basic form of communication.
Hmm.
It allows us to understand things, and humans are not the only ones, ETs are not the only ones, animals and plants themselves have this ability, because it literally is truly the first speech of source.
That is so important for people to get, so they can get over the whole macho, suck it up, don't express, or,
I
and
mean, there's a time and a place where that is, valid, like if you're
well,
at
for
war
warrior,
or
for
an
certain warrior
accident.
things. But
Yeah,
there's
like if you're an EMT, like you have to kind of shut it off, like you see it every day. It's overwhelming. You can't do your job. But at the end of the day, you need to go back to being able, when you're with your family or friends, being able to feel.
right. So I have something really exciting to share with everybody about that. Is before, those levels of sensitivity uh, would be judged a lot.
Mhm.
Some people who had high sensory input can get overwhelmed very easily. And I watched yesterday on Prime, Amazon Prime, they a story called Sensitive, the Untold Story, that I think came out in 2015. And of course, there's that wonderful doctor who wrote The Highly Sensitive People, two bestsellers. And now all the work they've done with mind mapping, watching people who are, quote, highly sensitive, means they can cry easily, or they express, or they get overwhelmed easily. I always felt that those were higher frequency vibrational beings. And it wasn't many off planet, in particular human bodies. And I still think I'm right about that, because the exciting thing is those beings, based on a lot of scientific studies, and in the movie you'll see a lot of professors, a lot of medical opinions, these beings activate more aspects of their brain. They're not less, they're not stupid, they're not whatever. They just can get overwhelmed. And what I'm excited to see, and I think it's more than that, is that 20% of the Earth's population, which means 1/5 of the Earth's population, is in the category of sensitive. And what they are finding is these beings, as long as they can have time off, because again, their abilities are probably more open. They're coming in through higher frequency experiences into the primitive 3.5 density world, and they need time to refuel alone. So I'm saying this for all of you out there who need that balance, or feel overwhelmed easily, or can't handle things that are too loud or too discordant, to honor that. It doesn't mean that you're sick or weak or anything like that. It actually, they have found, they make the best leaders, they make the best managers, and that they're actually great problem solvers, and they're able, out of that movie, we're able to have a much bigger picture and connect dots up and connections together that people who weren't as sensitive don't. So it's really this very, balance. So what do you think about that, Apollymi?
So I believe that, and through my own experience, that those people are on the few first stages of ascension, because when you go from ascension, it's self, 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 and then at 3.5 and whatnot. And then when you start to ascend, it's, oh, I'm not alone. I need to feel my environment. I become aware of my environment. I need to feel others. I become aware of others. And it gives you a bigger picture versus just having the blinders on like this. All of a sudden you have new senses, that you may not have had before. And so your brain is not just focused on self-serving, it's focused on, oh, I'm aware of my environment, I'm aware of other people, I feel how other people feel, I feel how my environment feels. Now I can address and problem solve the situation together, hopefully, and not just by yourself.
Beautifully said. And to create more harmony, and also
Mhm.
all these beings were generally raised by confused parents who either thought they were doing something wrong or shaming them for being so. So now people, with more education, like anything else on this planet, with more education, the more respect for uniquely wired beings, and advanced beings are uniquely wired. So
You don't say.
yeah, right? And so instead of us judging them, which is what I used to do when I was younger, but instead of like, get over it. Now we can just explore the magic. Many of these are, top producers, top artists, top in their fields, but they've had incredible stress learning how to cope, and the biggest thing was how to take care of themselves. That's what
Yeah,
was,
it's
right?
daunting. And that's one thing that when people start going through the ascension process, again, they're like, oh my God, I have all these new senses. I'm feeling everything. I'm sensing everything. I don't know how to cope. And they shut down and deprogress again, because they have no one understanding what they're going through. They have no understanding on how to set up boundaries energetically and mentally and physically. It's difficult. It really is. Even when you've gone through this several times, um not pointing to myself or anything, you know it still can be quite a challenge, and this is where environment is so important. There needs to be small cities or like towns that people can go to when they're doing this ascension to know a new culture, because a lot of it for coming into this is we need to change our cultures. I'm not talking about, how you dance in your culture or the foods you eat in your culture necessarily. I'm talking about how we nurture each other. Because especially here in America, and I don't really know too much about other countries, depending on where you're from, it's very self-serving. you are on your own all the time. You don't feel like you have anyone to bounce back on or to catch you, even though they say that they're going to. It's always, oh, have one hand out to shake your hand and the other behind your back with a knife. So it's, dog you dog world, but we need to change that and know that it's okay to have these abilities and to nurture them in a right way. And I don't even just mean like culturally, like, oh, I'm going to support you. Here's what I learned about coping. It may not work for you, but here's something, like, do this, take time to take out of your day for 20 minutes and pamper the crap out of yourself. you know Turn all the noise off, get earbuds if you have to, find a place in your house that is energetically to your frequencies that you love, that doesn't have anyone else's energy in it, and just ground yourself, be in you. And everyone's like, oh, I hear that all the time, with these new age people and the meditation people and stuff, but it is so important because feeling energetically with a new sense is like going into a convention with like 50 million people. You're hearing all the sights, you're hearing all the sounds, there's so much to look at. And if you don't have time to register it, if you don't have time to break it down and process what you're feeling, thinking, and hearing and seeing, it just stays in your brain. It's energetic brain of your heart and in your brain here. And it just builds and builds, and you don't really digest anything. You can't process it. You can't figure out how you feel about it, So it's important to take that time and just relax because I mean, even with people without abilities, we do this every day. When you say, like, people just go, 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 and they don't have time to process.
The checkoff list. Mhm.
Yep. Yep. Check off list. I gotta do the groceries, pick up the kids. I gotta work and then come home and
Yeah.
maybe do the chores if I'm lucky, and then go to bed. You're not taking time for yourself to process anything, and that information just jumbles up. You know,
Mhm.
you have to learn to stop and cleanse your brain so that you can focus on other things.
Appropriate boundaries and self-governance and stating what you need for yourself
Hmm.
without outside pressure. Obviously, if you have a young baby or something, it's a little different, but without outside pressure, someone shaming you or whatever. Most people I meet need to learn to speak up clearly what they need. That's too much overwhelm. I'm whatever this. I'm going to go into my room. Don't take it personally. I need downtime. I need to go to my man's cave. All those things, whatever.
Yeah, and be open about it with your family, friends, and partners because, in today's society, I'm just gonna say everyone's a snowflake and they're like, oh, are you mad at me? Or what the heck did
Yeah, they
I do?
take it too personally. They take it
Yeah.
too personally. Yeah, exactly. That'll be much healthier society. So, since we talk in our shows, or I'm always using the language creator and co-creator because a lot of people are uncomfortable owning up and feeling or stating that they're a creator. So it's easier to go into co-creator, that we're co-creating, which is also true
Mhm.
with all other aspects of ourselves and oneness. So um now, also, that being said, at least all the women and most of the men are natural creators because they're giving birth. So right there, that should be a clue. So you're a creator. So my point is to ask you, what the point I wanted to ask you is, why is someone a creator and why can people create?
So consciousness itself has the ability to create because it created itself into existence. No one else did that. And that is one of the weird quirks of life that even creators are like, oh, this is cool. Not quite sure why this happened, but there was just enough gravitational field here and emotion to do so. Sorry, hang on one second, I got it. So upon creating yourself, yes, other entities can make creation consciousness as well, but it's the fun ones that are creating themselves. Now,
And recreating.
yeah, well, everyone needs to learn boundaries, but so everything in creation with a consciousness has the ability to manipulate its surroundings with its energy. You know, the force of willpower, the ability of focus. Everything I'm going to be teaching in the videos and the book. The book will come out. I have decided it may not be as detailed as I want it to be for some things, just because I was revealing too much and I don't want to get in trouble. So I need to learn where boundaries are. I am still learning things and rules myself. I am not perfect. Uh, but this will like be in there. So having the ability to know thyself, know thy energy signature, know how to manipulate your own energetic field, okay, will allow you to manipulate your environment, good or bad. When you're angry, it changes your environment energetically. If you've ever walked into a room where, someone just got done arguing or someone had an accident and there's no evidence left, but you see it on the news later and you were there at that point in time, that is changing your environment energetically. Same with positively. You have a good gathering, everyone's having a great time. The energies of everyone is just making the plants happy. It's making the energy of the environment happy. That's changing your environment. That is a small thing, but it is still an act of creator. It is still an act of being a co-creator and being able to create your environment. Same thing with laws of attraction, okay? Like you're asking energetically for healing or for, oh man, I really need that job. I just lost my job. I'm about to lose everything. Bam, something comes up like out of nowhere. Okay. That is laws of attraction. You're creating your environment by attracting what you need.
Thank you. What a lot of people call synchronicity, right? But
Yeah.
it's so a beautiful, beautiful being mentioned this that has to do with my next show that's coming out. But when I asked it, we're talking 11th, 12th density, very high being. I asked it, if you can give a human their first step towards ascension, towards awakening, towards all these words we use, what would that be? And this beautiful being, which is an avian being, by the way, it said, an open mind creates possibilities without limitations. If it's the only thing you can do, keep an open mind, that anything is possible.
I totally agree with that. And I want to go more into detail on that. Most people think an open mind of, oh, well, I'll just accept anything that comes my way. But that's not what they're asking. When they say open mind, they're just saying that it could be possible. Our scientists don't know everything on this planet. They lack a lot of physics that are needed to fully understand everything. Everything that you see is hypothetical until it's repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated, and then they have defined evidence. And our science is like 25% correct on things. They're like, oh, our sun's going to live for 20 billion years, and by the time it dies, the earth will be destroyed. They don't know that.
At
They
least
really
100
don't.
years behind what we're actually using too. I mean, that's a whole nother.
Right. So, so like they don't know. Everything that you absorb in your daily life for information, it's hearsay. Unless you were there experiencing it, you just don't know. And so you have to take it upon yourself to decide whether that is or isn't. And again, that is all about how you were raised, how you view politics, how you view, everything else. And most people don't have the connection to their astral body, which knows a lot more than your physical body, because again, you're sensing conscious awareness to get the true information, even if you weren't there, because it's shared, it's stored. So, like you just don't know. So it's good to keep an open mind. Oh, I don't really agree with that, but maybe, just maybe, I don't have to believe on what they're saying, but it is a small possibility that something that that person is saying or doing is true. I am going to take it upon myself to do more information reading and possibly recreate what happened, depending on what it is, to see if I have the same outcome.
Exactly.
Mm, yeah.
Beautifully said. And so, folks, that's the most important thing.
Right.
Instead of going, just why, go, why not? Like, wouldn't it be nice? Uh, Start examining our places that we limit ourselves and all the programs and the thoughts, because it's going to be difficult to ascend if we don't. All right, Apollymi. So, just to be clear, is this correct? Every consciousness has the ability to ascend if we put the intent and the effort forward to do so.
Absolutely. To what tier of ascension is up to that person, really. And some of it's DNA could make it a little bit more challenging, but not impossible.
Okay. So never give up.
Never give up. The minute you give up is the minute you stay stagnant, and that's not a good thing. Well, sometimes it's a good thing, but when it comes to ascension, like, and people will ascend when they're ready for their physical vessel, but
Okay, so before we address the subscribers' questions, I'd like to end with, because we love to apply everything that you teach to the ascension principles, because that's why is the bottom line of a lot of what's going on this planet. We just talked about open minds as being the first step. So if you find yourself going, oh, that's too much for me, or oh, I can't contemplate that, or oh, that isn't right, or oh, that can't be possible, or all the ways the program does it, that's the first step to believe. Okay, now what would you say, Apollymi, after that is the simplest, say 3 to 5 foci, the focus to aid in our ascension?
the the first thing would be to drop your ego. And what I mean by that is it's okay to have a little bit of ego. Ego is a natural part of consciousness. It's never going to go away, but you need to rein it in, okay? Oh, I think I'm better than that person because I can do this a better job than this. It could be healthy to have that aspect, but at this to know that you have a better skill set than that person, but to it's how you present it and how you present it in yourself and how you present it out loud. Oh, well, I think I'm better for the job because like I have a better skill set than this person. I know the materials, I know what I'm doing, hire me, whatever. But not like I could do better. You know what I mean? Like there's a toxic ego and then there's a healthy ego to acknowledge oneself and your achievements, and doing everything. And then there's the toxic ego of just,
Right.
being closed off, closed-minded, just thinking that they're better than everyone else.
And over competitive, which happens on
Mhm.
3D rather than mutually collaborative.
Correct.
That's another
Yeah.
having to
And
do with that. Yeah.
and not being mutually collaborative with everything else around you really isolates you. What I mean by dropping your ego is, you know, don't think that you've learned everything because you haven't. And even the creators of greatness have not learned everything. They're still learning. That's why they have all these experiments to begin with. Um, Always know that something is possible. Have an open mind with your ego. uh if you go into a classroom with your glass full, you're never going to come out with any material at all. You're just going to blow it off. It's not going to sink in your brain. So always know what you know, and that's fine, but set it aside. And I explicitly say this to all of my students in my book. We're going to say it in the videos, everything. I'm not saying what you know is wrong, but always have your ego in check enough to learn something of someone else's existence and experiences, even if it doesn't jive with yours, because there might be something that they have done that's different, but you guys still manage to make it into the same place, for like the levels of attainment.
Yeah, everyone has their own unique first filter, I call it.
Yeah.
First filter. Some are skeptics, some are this, some are that, some are, agnostic, atheist, whatever else. And it's
Yeah.
once you get to the core, it's often the same thing. Okay, so you've got drop the ego, and then take action, obviously, right? Do
Yeah.
things for yourself, like we talked about.
Yeah,
And
if you're just sitting there waiting for someone else to grab your hand and take you on ascension, it's not gonna happen. Like, your environment makes it easier to ascend if you're with other people who are going through ascension, but you're only gonna get so far. And I really mean this to the bottom and top of my heart. No one is going to force your ascension. You have to do it. It is something that only you can do, and a lot of the journey is by yourself. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that, because it is your existence.
then there's the link of then the next step would be linking the mind and heart, like you
Yes.
talked about.
Yes. So again, in your physical vessel, your mind and heart have their own identities. And I talk about this as well. But um you need to know them. You know, your mind is going to be part of your logic. It's the what most people call the male aspect of creation, and your heart is going to be the emotional part, of everything. Know yourself. Know what it is that your morals are in your physical vessel. Connecting your heart and your brain is the first step to making that bridge connection to your astral body, because your astral body connects with you on your heart and brain level. It's the communicator, but it needs to be strengthened. It needs to be bonded by the levels of ascension so that more information can come in without hurting the physical body. More vibrations can come in to start activating those abilities, and your physical abilities will activate first before your astral abilities. So, that's the steps of evolution for your physical body. Um, so it takes a lot of work and a lot of time. How long does it take for someone to ascend to seventh tier? When I was doing my students and they had no abilities, no understanding of magic, didn't even know it existed, or abilities or ETs or anything like that. I don't teach ET stuff I don't teach about ETs in my classes. It's only about your ascension. And within a year to a year and a half, for the students who are a bit, more challenged than others for awakening their DNA through trauma or whatever, they went from 3.5 to 4.5 to fifth for tiers. They started making that transition. And just again, because you have abilities does not mean that you're at a high tier ascension. I've
Mhm.
had abilities all my life and I was still at 3.5. And I could freaking make Stargate portals and walk through them. It's all about making that bridge connection between your physical body's evolution and getting those vibrations up to, your um, kundalini, or to your chakra lines, and getting them sequenced enough to accept the information and energy from your astral body.
So that's so beautifully said. That was really important how you finished that. So it's the ability to integrate and marry in a
Mhm.
sacred way communication to the different parts of ourselves. And with
Yeah.
that, I believe then we expand out to the world and using the same skill set, you
Oh,
know.
yeah. And many people are like, well, how can you have abilities and walk through Stargate and phase through stuff? Because you're changing your dimension. So obviously you have to be a higher dimensional being, but it's not the same because you're evolving your consciousness in the physical vessel. Your consciousness has to be evolved. And that's the hardest part for a lot of people. Your physical body has to be evolved enough to hold that conscious energy because the vibrations your consciousness creates starts to imprint on your physical DNA through the piezoelectric properties. And so after that, like you also have to work on your mind. Your mind has to be able to understand and hold that consciousness. And when I mean the mind, I mean your physical brain, your thought processes, the way you perceive things, the way you judge things, the way that you interact with things. That has its own aspect of things, and that needs to evolve as well. Without the trinity of three, uh it's not going to fully work. You can have a higher one while another one is down here, but without that balance, the ascension part is not going to happen. I had a high energy body but a low consciousness understanding of things, and my brain was like halfway over here. So my consciousness was like down here. I had all this knowledge, but that doesn't mean anything. I have to go through those puberty steps of evolution on all three stages in order to fully meet ascension standards.
Thank you so much. So much. That is such important reminders. I know we did repeat a few things that were very important in previous shows, but in more depth. And really, really appreciate you, Apollymi. Thank you for all that you do and coming forward. And I do like to honor my subscribers' questions. The first one asked, can you explain when you talk about someone's ascension point or tier level or dimensional frequency, does that apply to your soul or your body or both? So
So that's going to apply only to your physical body for ascension. Now, again, your astral body also has to go through ascension, but that's not for this plane of existence to really worry about. Um, so it will be your physical body, and your physical body you need to work most on. The connection and communication with your astral body when you get to that point, because you don't have to have the full link for it, to communicate with your astral body. But in order to get a lot of the abilities, the memory transference and stuff, you need to start forging that link. And it takes a long time and it takes a while. So, and it takes a lot of, effort to be put into it. But the majority of the ascension is going to be your physical body.
Okay.
I think I said that
A lot of people are taught the opposite, so it's very interesting.
I know, and it's
like
very
up level over,
Yeah, it's very weird. Again, like I find all the time that people are daydreaming and jumping ahead and they're excited about like astral body. I'm gonna have my astral body and I'm gonna attach to it and my soul and consciousness. They're not looking at what they've left behind and what the true goal is. And the true goal is you need to connect with your physical body first because that's where the evolution is going to take place. It's great to have conversations with your higher self to communicate with it for guidance because your higher self will guide you on what you need to do to ascend because it's already monitoring your physical body, unless your consciousness is a jerk, but not everyone gets along with their astral bodies. Okay, there's some people who just don't like themselves.
That's a whole nother show. We're not
a whole nother show, but so and half of the time they don't like themselves because they're like, oh, this is too primitive. I'm bored. I'm going to go over here. But once you start getting the attention of your astral body, being like, hey, I'm ready to listen now. I'm ready to learn now. I'm ready to evolve now. They'll start reining in. But yeah, again, so like listen to, you need to know yourself so that you need to know when it is your higher self speaking or when it is your physical body speaking. And it's a chore, but it's worth it.
It is. I guess that's what the Buddha meant, and this is a paraphrase of a said, treat your body with respect. It is your pathway for ascension.
That's a good one. Yeah, no, I completely agree.
So with that, okay, so second question, if a person, like most humans on Earth, are at 3.5 dimension,
Mhm.
can they all astral travel at that tier or dimension?
So astral traveling for most people is when your soul, your astral body, uh basically goes off and wanders around. Okay. Even though it's on a different dimension, it's still tethered to you. And a lot of people's astral bodies, especially if they're not, most people who aren't in tuned don't even know they have an astral body. They're just like, ah, la, 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 la. Some astral bodies actually stay in their physical vessel. And when that happens, you get a boost of energy. So if your astral body is away from your physical vessel for too long or whatnot, like you can feel drained, you can feel tired, that sort of thing. Because you're not getting that quanta exchange from another source that's higher than you. And which is why a lot of,
That's
people like
important.
me are continuously exhausted. But, so that silver string that most people know about,
Silver cord, yeah.
yeah, the silver cord is what connects you physical vessel to your astral body. And so yes, you can astral travel. And the information, sometimes people get information or they have memories of astral traveling, to wherever. Uh, the information comes through that cord and into your body. But your mind also has to be able to receive those frequencies. So you have to be able to vibrate at certain frequencies in order to even retain the information, let alone translate it.
Important answer. Okay, third one, is the astral body stronger than the physical body?
Well, that depends. Again, as we spoke before, the astral body is whatever has its shard before it. So the astral body that you have now, uh, who knows what it looks like? Depends on the species, depends on how much it maintained of the DNA. Your physical vessel could be stronger than your astral. If you're a new consciousness in existence and you've only had one lifetime as like a cat or something, a physical vessel like this is going to be stronger than it, obviously. So, and I don't mean like any of the outer space ET cats. I mean like a house cat. So it really just depends. Certain bodies like ET bodies or dimensional being bodies may have only had certain abilities that they don't that your physical vessel has, or doesn't have, I should say. So if your physical vessel has more abilities than the astral body it has for its form, for its DNA, then yes, you're going to be stronger in ability wise, than your astral form. Now it has more energy, it might have more focus, it might have more information on how to do things. So it could be stronger in certain aspects, but it just depends on what they're fully asking about that situation.
And I could
Again,
see,
it goes into why reincarnation is so important because it gives us more, of an experience in our existence as an oversoul.
that's true, maximum experience and exploration, right? Okay, so this is very personal. If you don't feel comfortable answering it, you do not need to. This person has a couple questions related to the same thing. You mentioned that, Apollymi, you mentioned that a lady from the inner Earth civilizations asked you if you would be willing to have a child with an inner Earth man for them. Can you tell us if you did that? Did the child survive?
Yeah, so I previously mentioned that, the minute I turned 18, basically I had the inner earth lady that I had interactions with ever since I was a kid magically appear out of nowhere after years and been like, "Hey, we want you to couple up with this really hot guy." So He's very attractive, you know, tall, long, kind of blondish white hair, blue eyes. And I'm like, hey, you know, like I'm very shy to be honest, but you know, I was like, and what purpose is this for? And they're like, oh, we want you to have a child. And I'm like, I never even wanted to get married, let alone have kids ever. So weird, but you know, whatever. And I'm like, so, you know, we sat down and there was a contract and I got introduced to him. I'm not going to give his name. Uh, you know, but he seems interested in me, and thank goodness I actually had my real form.
Uh,
So,
you had your
yeah.
dragon Fae form, you mean?
Yeah, except for like so it had augments in me that kept me from seeing my dragon like body parts, but
Mhm.
I definitely was more fey. I still had the pointed ears and
Ah,
you know the facial features and stuff.
so he
So
related to the elven part, the elven
yeah. So, you know, I was like, okay. And, you know, we made the contracts and he's from Inner Earth and he wanted the child to stay in Inner Earth. And at the time, I still had my memories suppressed about being in the projects. And for some reason, I was like, no, that's not going to do. I'm like, I don't want this child on this planet at all. It is not allowed to even set foot down here for anything. I'm like, I don't care if, you know, anyone's on their deathbed, you know, the child is not allowed to be here. And he's like, well,
your
I
own
live in inner.
safety because
Yeah.
you learned, yeah.
Yeah. So like my inner me was like, mm-mm, and I trusted it. I was like, okay, I'm not signing that the child is ever going to be here or that it will ever live in inner earth. And, you know, so I told him, I'm like, you're just going to have to move. I'm like, I don't care where you move to, but the kid's not being here. It's not safe. I don't like it here. I most certainly am not going to let my child, you know, even in inner earth, because I'd been to inner earth, be raised in an environment where the surface world is just so unaccepting of things. Because, you know, situations change all the time.
Mhm.
So you know, he agreed on it and we signed the contract. And, you know, he was like, okay, well, if you do not want your child in inner earth, you cannot see your child until you pass Ascension and get out into space. So I've not seen my child physically since.
Sequoia 68 asked, do you live in a 3D world while you are doing your real work? And are you allowed to manifest food and money?
So unless I'm doing the Avatar project for super soldier stuff, which I'm not going to get into, uh, my physical body is the one that gets taken to do stuff out in space. As for manifesting food and money, unfortunately, I have always been less of coin on this planet, but that's pretty much from targeting. And out in space, though, like I have the knowledge to manifest food and create it out of nowhere. However, I don't really do it that often, to be honest. Like, just because I have powers doesn't necessarily mean that I use them necessarily, and probably more than I like. I probably should use them more than I don't for some things. As for money, it wouldn't really do me any good out in space unless it's like gold or like, you know, but it takes a lot of energy. It really does. It doesn't just pop out of nowhere. It's not like just because I think it happens. You know, there's a lot of science involved. Um, so yeah, I could be rich and probably half dead from exhaustion, but
From
we never really.
prana depletion.
Yeah, yeah, it's very much prana depletion. Um, but I never get to keep anything that I get from outer space from my missions and stuff to bring down here. So that would be obsolete. And as for materializing any gold or food here, the veil keeps everything at a prana level very low. It would have to be down, and even then it would take a lot of energy with the consciousness of this planet because its energy field does interact with prana manipulation here. It's easier out in space because you don't have as much field activity for energetic fields to be messed with. So yeah, it would be nice if I could do all the money stuff and food.
Okay, there's one last question, but I wanted you did say that people were at 3.5, and then the consciousness of Earth is at 4.5. Is that correct?
Yeah, it became 4.5 just a couple years ago, within the last 3 years. We got the update from the Starseed Council, so because I have to check in with it every once in a while. And from when I first started doing my disclosure, people were asking me, well, what percentage is at, the high rate? And I'm like, you have to be at 10% or up in order for Ascension to be successful for this planet anyway, not individuals. And we haven't reached that yet. Even now, we
10%,
haven't reached that.
10% of what? Or 10% of
10% of 7th-tier awakened people.
seventh tier, yeah.
Yes.
Ooh.
In
But
order for
but fifth is considered an ascension, right? To
5th
get to
tier,
fifth.
well, it's all Ascension is like Ascension tier, like 2, 3, 4, 5,
That's
all
what
the
you're
way up.
talking about, the seventh
Yeah,
tier.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Okay,
so the 7th tier is like the goal for everybody,
right.
and we haven't even reached 10% yet of the whole planet to have 7th tier for everyone. And when I first started doing disclosure, God, almost like 5 years ago now, with my first host, uh, the percentage was only 15%. It was of that 10%. It was very low. Within the last 3 years, though, it's
Yes,
made it up to 20.
yes,
20% of 10% that needs to be done.
yes.
So we're getting there. It's slower. It's a slow thing. But with the consciousness rising more, we're gonna find that if people continue to take this journey of ascension, it's gonna be more. It's gonna be easier too from our environment raising and dimension.
It takes everyone to do it. They can't blame anyone else but themselves in terms of just it's a whole moving organism, and we've already been given shows with Ileana and ours have given upgrades that have happened just in this last year or two. So never give up, folks. Um,
Yeah, and for people who haven't had upgrades or like feel like they haven't had upgrades, when you start ascending, you'll start feeling the recipient end of that more. It
yeah,
can be a little daunting, but it's just a phase and it will pass, and then you'll have that upgrade.
yes. So one last question really quick. Since you move between realms, why do some space travelers need a ship when you can just astral travel if you have advanced skills?
So again, this goes to what plane of existence that you reside on and the dimensions within those planes. When you are astral traveling, again, it is your astral body. And if your astral body wants to interact physically with something here, it has to lower in dimension and be able to condense itself strong enough to have an electromagnetic field to interact with things or become even corporeal. It's like kind of how like ghosts interact with this dimension, even though they're on a different plane of existence. So I hope that answers the question pretty well.
It does, and you've done a great job at answering those questions, and we're all up to speed with people's questions so far. What we are thinking about, though, is we know that all of you want and have a lot of unending questions for Apollymi, and she is not available by email or any other thing at this point. So we are contemplating putting at the top. She's going to show me how to do this. I'm not a techie, at the top of the comment section, which is how I hear about you and what you want. I don't do any social media, do not have time. Uh, and so what we're thinking about is doing a webinar at a very, very reasonable price for an hour or an hour and a half or whatever, where you can participate and ask all the questions you want.
So in the comment section, there'll be a pinned post in the comments from uh from Marilee about would people like a webinar for Apollymi for Q&A, and it will have its own like thumbnail on it. So if you just hit that like button on that pinned comment, it will show us how many people are interested in doing that.
Okay, wonderful. And so for right now, folks, Apollymi is still pretty much at 120% overwork. So we're doing the best we can. Thank you for your patience and understanding. And hopefully we can be doing a little bit more of these, incorporating more of you and sharing with some webinars and some teaching on the videos. And then the book will probably slowly evolve depending. In the past, we will say this, certain really key individuals on the planet were given information by ET or advanced for different reasons, for benevolent or not benevolent. And these beings were not at the capacity of understanding where they could handle the level of information and misused it. So when someone is responsible for giving advanced information, it has to do with co-creation, manifestation, all of those things. They are in huge personal responsibility. And so that is part of the issue here of what to share, what's appropriate not to share. If people do their jobs and advance in ascension, the more we can share, and generally speaking. But that's the tricky thing. And she would never tell you that personally, but that's part of what's going on. So it's
It's the same problem that I'm having with the book of, people have to be at a certain conscious level of knowledge before, certain information can be given.
thank you so much. And Apollymi, for your graciousness and for your amazing amount of time provided today to reinforce the importance of the different things around ascension and more deep understanding that is not shared on this planet around soul and mind and link ups and astral bodies. Really, really, really appreciate that. And thank you out there, our extended team. Please share and subscribe and let us know if you'd be willing to do the webinar with pretty much unlimited questions. We would do it in real time. You wouldn't be writing them ahead of time, and there will be a fee, but we'll keep it as low as possible. So
Yeah.
let us know. And go ahead, Apollymi.
I just wanted to say, because everyone hears that, oh, we're not doing just, giving out information until everyone does their part, and everyone's like, oh, that's normal talk and stuff. No, it literally is about safety for us, safety for you guys, and responsibility that, you've reached the conscious level of ascension to be responsible with the information as well.
Yes. Because otherwise the karma falls on Apollymi. We're going to use every way we can to get the important information for your learning and growth. And Apollymi has agreed to do Q&A if the demand is there enough. So let us know. We're here for you, and blessings. And let's not stop. Onwards and upwards, folks. Okay. Bye-bye.